You know how you have kind of a fucked up toe? You know how sometimes when you walk, your hip hurts for a second, but then you're fine? You know how you have a mild allergy to walnuts that is really so incredibly insignificant that it doesn't even stop you from enjoying them? You know how you're just a little more gassy than the average person? You know how your back hurts sometimes even though you sit in a very ergonomic way? You know how you have that one spot where you tend to get pimples for some reason? No matter who you are, there's at least like a small couple of things wrong with you, physically speaking. It is what it is, and it's completely fine that you have those imperfections. No person alive ever has had no imperfections. We are highly complex meat machines powered by sophisticated nanites that just kind of occurred and nobody quite understands the full extent of what we are. Of course, sometimes some minor thing is gonna go wrong. Probably right now you could list some like minor physical ailments and imperfections that you have, and if you can't right now, over the course of the coming days, they will pop into your head. But you'd never go to see a doctor about them because, frankly, they're not a big deal. Yeah, they may be uncomfortable at times, and maybe sometimes you don't feel good about them, and who knows, maybe even they're very, very low-tier disease, but they don't have a massive impact on your quality of life. They're just kind of there, and you learn to live with them, and very often there's just nothing to be done about them, and that's fine. And a key part to learn how to live with these things is to discover the methods that are required to make yourself more comfortable with them. I have a higher body temperature than the human average, but somehow my feet are always cold. So I do the army trick where I get a small sock and I put the bigger sock over it so it takes away moisture, it keeps my feet nice and snug. I have like a foot warming kind of thing that is over there in this general area in a cupboard that I have. Right here where I'm recording right now, I have my radiators over there, and I have like a beanbag over there that I will pull up when I'm reading and like put a glass of water over here. And then there's another chair that's where the tablet, where the script for this video is on. It's right here. And then I'll sit back on the beanbag, relaxed, put up my feet on this other chair and hold them up right to the radiator. And they will be really nice and warm. It's super cool. Alright, I mean, it's not super cool, but you know what I mean. People who do not have constantly cold feet do not need to do these things. They need to do other things for their physical ailments that I don't need to do. They're minor quirks and we learn how to handle them. So now think of how complex the human body is, and then take the brain out and consider how much more complex it is even than the rest of the human body. When people say that the brain is the most complex thing in the universe, you can make the case that ending the thingness of the brain at a certain arbitrary point is arbitrary, and you'd be right. But also, that doesn't change the fact that the human brain is the single most complex thing that we know of in the universe. We as a civilization with so much incredible knowledge and just insanely advanced technology have had some of the smartest people that have ever been born put in a place where we gave them insane amounts of money, and they have studied the brain, and they maybe altogether have a somewhat basic understanding of how it might work. We know more about some areas than others, and most of that stuff is really located in the neurology of the organ. But consider understanding the way that your computer operates. That doesn't mean that you also understand on a technical software level how GTA 5 operates, even if maybe you understand on a gameplay level and an experience level how GTA 5 operates. Consciousness itself? The human psyche? Damn, that is so difficult to study, and just one of the reasons for it is that there's only ever one person who experiences their own psyche. You can't look into that. It's not possible. And that is really the problem, because you, as an individual, are the person that is most biased about yourself. It's very easy to lie to yourself about yourself. And then consider the vast infinities of your subconscious that aren't even accessible to you. It's incredible that we are as effective with, like, psychology as we are. It's a microcosm of the physical illness versus mental illness universe, because it is very often easier to identify and properly validate physical illness than mental illness. I mean, when you're sort of bleeding out, that's kind of obvious. So maybe a little difficult to ignore. And if there's people who can lie to themselves about having physical disorders, because there are 100%, a lot of people who suffer from, for example, morbid obesity are firmly of the opinion that they do not have a problem, in spite of the overwhelming amount of physical evidence to the contrary that they literally witness at all hours of the day. Imagine how good people are at ignoring their own mental problems. That is part of the core problem with the very concept of problems. Because if we ignore problems, they seem a lot smaller than they actually are, while in reality, probably they're just growing. And it's very easy to not be able to look inside your own head. Your eyes literally face this way. Trust me, I've been there. And if people can ignore their big mental issues, they sure as shit can ignore their small mental issues. After all, like having cold feet often isn't like a monumental problem in my life. If I never did anything about it, it would just keep on being mildly uncomfortable. But the fact that I did do something about it, and I do something about it, increases my quality of life disproportionately, actually. So if there's quirks in a system as complex as your body, 100% chaos theory dictates that there must be also minor quirks and problems with your brain, which is 100% more complex. And that's fine. I think part of the stigma with mental health is that the science of mental health only studies the really extreme cases where there's big problems and shit is like super broken. There's a spectrum between being mildly constipated and shitting out your internal organs. But if you only study this end of the spectrum, a lot of this area is just ignored and it will seem as though it doesn't even exist. Now, this is a kind of knowledge bias that we also have in standard medical science, and it makes sense. People don't really go to the doctor for these things, and you know, there's bigger problems that we could invest the intelligence and the money and the time and the energy of like medical scientists into, so why would we do this instead? But that doesn't mean that people don't have these quirks, and it also doesn't mean that they don't need special things in order to alleviate them. You are a unique person with unique needs, and some of those needs you can ignore, but your life would be a lot more comfortable if you didn't. There's nothing wrong with being flawed. There has never been a person that wasn't flawed. There's never been a person that was perfect. And this isn't just because the very concept of perfection is internally paradoxical and so forth. An essential part of learning how to live with yourself is to identify these minor things that you need and then provide them to yourself to make your life easier. Maybe you ruminate a lot about hypothetical scenarios. Maybe when you're stressed, sometimes you just do more work in order to avoid having to think about feeling stressed. Maybe you're afraid of the dark. Maybe you are easily distracted. These things aren't necessarily a terrible mental illness that you have, much like my cold feet aren't diabetes or vascular disease. They're just cold feet, a bug in the system that I have found a series of workarounds for. There's nothing wrong with you, at least not like wronger than with anyone else, and you deserve to make those accommodations in order to make yourself more comfortable. Because yes, you are in fact just a little bit mentally ill. Exactly like you are just a little bit physically ill. You just don't quite meet the threshold for it to be an actual problem. It's just a thing that you have. Taking a nice bubble bath every once in a while, or cuddling with your pillow and or comforter, or maybe saying no when somebody wants to talk to you but your social batteries are just depleted right now, is completely fine. Similarly, some of these things might actually go away if you address them properly. If your shoulder hurts often, it might be because of overuse, or maybe because you carry your backpack in a weird way, or it's like weighted strangely, or maybe you just sit in a draft, I don't know. Stop doing that, and then the problem will be solved, and then your shoulder will be fine. The mind works the same way. It's why we take vacations when stress is just clouding us. We take some days off, do whatever we want, enjoy our time, come back fresh and recharged. Really what I'm saying is, pay attention to your mental health. We like to think that our mind is this perfect, unassailable thing that we have complete and utter control over fully at all times. But it's not, and it's fine that it's not. It's a very complex system interacting in a complex way with another super complex system, and then all of the systems around it, and it's one has an effect on the other and vice versa, and it's extremely complicated, and we can never know even a fraction of what is actually going on at all times. But that doesn't mean that those things aren't going on. And it doesn't mean that you don't owe it to yourself to make accommodations for your mental health. After all, you wouldn't wear a winter coat when you go out hiking in the desert heat. Why would you do that for your mind? Thank you very much for watching this video. Like, comment, subscribe, do all the things. Share this to your relevant communities, but do not spam them. I had to record this last portion twice. It's very irritating because my computer crashed and I didn't notice until I was finished recording. Consider supporting me on Patreon or Subscribestar, maybe buying some of the merchandise. I've actually been in touch with someone from YouTube. It's taken a while, but they're nice, which is not something that I expected. And maybe also buy my short story collection. And in that spirit, take care of your mental health, and obviously also your physical health. I've said it before, I'll say it again. Take care of your mental health, and also your physical health. It's important. And see you around, cunts.